Welcome to the broadcast for Blender Basics Part 1. This is Apollos, transmitting from the Blender Underground at blenderunderground.com, away from the watchful eye of the man. We have ascended to broadcast depth so that you can receive the signal, and we are pleased to be sending it. This happens to be Blender Underground's first video tutorial, aimed at anyone seeking to get the hang of this incredible 3D modeling and animation package called Blender. There are 3 objects in the startup scene, and you'll see them every time you start Blender, unless you choose otherwise, and we'll deal with this a little later. You have here a cube, which is a mesh or a piece of polygonal geometry, a light, which is used to illuminate the geometry, and a camera. And when you render your scene, it's this camera's perspective that's going to be used. By the way, these objects are selected using the right mouse button. And this may seem a little awkward at first, but you'll get used to it, and I recommend leaving the right mouse select as the default option. As follows. Use numpad 0 to switch to the camera view. Use numpad 5 to switch back to perspective view. Incidentally, numpad 5 is also a toggle between orthographic and perspective views. No matter how hard you look, you won't find a preferences dialog in any of the menus in the menu bar up here. Preferences are cleverly tucked away at the top of the screen. Place your mouse on the divider here between the menu bar and the viewport until your cursor turns into a double-sided arrow, and then click and drag to expose your preferences. Under the View and Controls context, there are 2 windows immediately visible in Blender's default configuration, the 3D view at the top and the buttons window at the bottom. Each of these windows is customizable, and any view can be selected to occupy any window. For instance, we can change the 3D view to the UV editor, and we can change the button window here to the 3D view. Change to the double arrow, right-click. Choose Split Area from the pop-up menu. Now when you move your mouse up and down, you get a choice as to which window you want to split. Move your mouse cursor into the window that you want to split and left click. Now you can choose a new identity for the window, such as the outliner, which shows a list of all the objects in the scene. If you happen to be seeing the OOPS schematic here, just choose View Show Outliner to get it to the outliner. Join windows together again by right-clicking the divider and choosing Join Area. When you move your mouse up and down, you'll see the arrow changes between the top window and the bottom window. Whichever window has the arrow pointing to it is the one that's going to be done away with. So we'll do away with the IPO editor, and it just merges those 2 windows together and gives us the outliner. Holding Control for each of the number keys reverses them. So Control numpad 7, instead of switching to the top view, switches to the bottom view. Control numpad 1 switches to back view, and Control numpad 3 switches to left instead of right side view. Okay, before we get into any more nuts and bolts, I wanted to talk about layers. I would have saved this for later, but it's fairly easy to accidentally select another layer and have all the objects in your scene disappear. For that reason, we'll talk briefly about layers here. If you've used Photoshop or GIMP, these little buttons on the right side of the 3D header control which layers are visible. By default, everything's on layer 1. You can click these buttons to switch layers, or you can shift-click them to select more than one layer at once. For this next demonstration, let's go ahead and turn off our transform manipulator, which is the red, green, and blue axis device that appears on our selected object. On the 3D view header, there's a little hand icon. Just click it to turn off the manipulator. You'll want to get used to the keyboard shortcuts for object manipulation. Press the G key to grab or move an object. Right-click to cancel. Press the R key to rotate an object. Press Escape to cancel. Press the S key to scale an object. We'll rotate our view here so you can see the Z-axis constraint indicated by the blue line. You'll notice there's a green grid line for Y and a red grid line for X, but there's no grid line for Z. Unless you turn it on in the view properties. You can access the view properties from the view menu. To view the blue Z grid line, just turn on the button for Z-axis under the 3D display section. If we press R to rotate our cube, we can constrain the axis of the rotation with the X, Y, and Z keys, the same as we could when we were moving it. If we press S to scale our cube, the same applies.